Hi, my name is Heather. In recent weeks, I decided to learn Blender, which is a 3D animation and modeling tool. But anyway, I just made this video to show all of the things that I've been through since starting to learn Blender, and share them with you. So I hope you enjoy it.
How did I end up getting into Blender? Well, to learn that, we have to go back a long way. All the way back to 1984, when I was a young teenager dying to express myself, and I learned to sew. That was a really exciting time to sew because in the early 80s, punk fashion was new and there was an infinite sense of possibility. Just watch Pretty in Pink to get an idea about this. I wanted to recapture the sense of experimentation that I had with fashion and clothing back in the early 80s. I also wanted to leave today's exploitative, boring, fast fashion world far behind. So I started getting really interested in digital fashion and all of the things it promised. Sustainable fashion, infinite expression, low cost. Digital fashion just seemed to be a lot of hype, but probably for a good reason. I would need some software and some tools to do digital fashion, of course, and I looked into the industry tools such as Clothes 3D, I think it's pronounced clothed, or Marvelous Designer, which allow you to do a lot of things and have a beautiful user interface. But these tools cost way too much, and they would require me to change my platform and my operating system. So they weren't really feasible because I would have to spend hundreds of dollars. So I decided to use Blender because it's free and it runs on Linux, which I have. Then I looked into some online courses for Blender or for digital fashion. Most of the Blender courses seem to be oriented towards gaming or Pixar style animation or world building, and I wasn't so interested in that. There were some digital fashion courses, but they required use of those tools that were too expensive for me and that I didn't want to invest in. So at that point, I knew what I had to do. I would have to use Blender and I would have to use it alone. I wanted the beautiful UI that came with Clothes 3D, which included a closet and a model doing runway walking and poses and textures and shapes that were all ready. But none of that was available in Blender. The first time I opened Blender, I was confronted with what everyone else sees, the cube. Still, I persevered, and I soon learned that, so I thought, that I would have to make my own character in Blender. So that was the first thing I did. I set about trying to make a character based on a YouTube tutorial with not so great results. But I did learn a lot of things like how to extrude planes and shapes and vertices. Then I learned that, okay, building a character is really hard, but that's okay because there are a lot of websites where you can get a pre-made character. So I logged into a few of these and started looking around. Of course, my dream was to have that fashion aesthetic. I grew up in the 80s and I loved the elegant, slim illustrations from fashion magazines and from 80s sewing patterns. Or I liked the look of characters from modern art, that sketchy, unfinished quality. I knew a few artists back in high school and have always hung on to these sketches that were made by a friend. I think they're really beautiful and they just capture what I was looking for. But that was not to be. Blender, of course, has its own aesthetic, and it mostly comes from the world of gaming or animated films, and not from the world of fashion. When I tried to search for fashion characters or female characters on the Blender sites, I kept getting very detailed models that look like Pixar characters or porn or ninja fighters or zombies. This was not what I wanted. So, in that case, I would have to go for the next best thing. I would find a character that was as close to a mannequin as I could find. Luckily, a lot of the Blender websites had very plain mannequins, and after a few passes, I found the right one. Next, I would have to learn how to use my character in Blender. There are many things that you need to do to a character to make it into something that will work with digital fashion. First of all, my character didn't move at all. It just sat there. It was a monolithic block, or what you call a mesh in Blender. That's fine for shooting stills, but when you work with cloth in Blender, it moves. It actually does move, and you want it to be on a model that moves as well, so you can see how the cloth moves. So I learned that my character would need to be posable. I would need to give it a rig. A rig is a skeleton you give a 3D animation character, which allows you to move and pose it, like a digital Barbie doll. So of course I tried to set up my own rig in Blender with very funny results. Rigging is really hard, and I learned that quickly. But then I also learned that you could get a rigged character on the same websites. Some of them were very expensive, but in the end I found one that cost about $6, so I was very happy. I opened up my character in Blender and I downloaded my cloth plugin and quickly learned to create some clothing that was pretty bad. I even learned how to put the clothing on my character. I even learned how to make some poses and set up the lighting, and I got very ambitious and created a whole scene all at once. Then I realized I was trying to do too many things at once, and I also learned that in Blender everything is a skill that's pretty hard to learn, and you really have to learn everything separately. You can't just do lighting and the rig and the posing and the clothes all at once. So I started learning things separately. This is where I wanted to be someday, with a perfect model, just making clothes and working with textures and designs, but this would have to wait for now. I had to do some other things to my mannequin first, such as hair. My model had no hair, so that needed to change. I decided not to use a plugin for this, but actually to learn how to do hair in Blender. This is what I mean when I say that everything in Blender is really hard. I spent about a month learning how to do hair. It was very frustrating. I was obsessed with Blender hair and hairstyles and created quite a few bad ones. In the end, this is what I got, and I'm pretty happy with it. It's weird hair, but weird hair is in. Next, I also tried to learn rendering a little bit. This is how you get professional photo stills and movies out of Blender. However, rendering takes a lot of time and processing power, so for now I'll just settle for screenshots. Lately, I've been trying to get better at animation. This is what I consider to be the final thing that my character needs. Like I said, the clothes move, and I need a model that can move or walk while wearing the clothes. So I needed to learn how to do animation. I've been watching some animation videos and learning how to do what is called a walk cycle. This is fun but very tedious. It's like with the hair. It's going to take many nights. But I am starting to get some unique results that are emerging. More recently, I found a plugin called Mixamo that everyone seems to be using for animation. As you can see, it gives beautiful professional results, which is wonderful, and I may stick with it for now, but it's also very sad. Suddenly my desire and will to learn animation went out the window. There was the Mixamo animations already out of the can. Oh well, for now I want to get back to working on clothes, so I think maybe later on I'll try to do my own again. So now, after a year and a half of late night sessions, I finally have created something that I can use to design digital clothing. An animated model that can wear the clothes I design, and that cloth conforms to her body and moves with her and has hair. It's all I could have hoped for. And she's wearing the dress that I just created based on a YouTube video for a Beastie Boys song. You may recognize the video. I look forward to designing many more clothes and playing with cloth simulations in Blender and playing with animation. It really is a lot of fun, and I encourage you to try it out. It's free, and it's so much fun. Again, I hope you will try it out. It takes some time and it's a learning curve, but it really is worth it. And I think that digital animation is going to be more and more important in the future. So I hope to see you here, and thanks for being part of this. Bye-bye.